everybody to the May 2024 regular meeting of the Fairhaven Historic Commission. Adequate notice of this meeting has been given pursuant to the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act. At the time the board reorganization in January this year, the board adopted its regular meeting schedule for the year. Notice of the meeting schedule was sent and published by the Asbury Park Press on January 26, 2024, and notice to the Two River Times on February 7th, 2024. The notice was also posted on the bulletin board in the Borough Hall and has remained continuously posted there as required by the statute. A copy of the notice is and has been available to the public and is on file in the office of the Borough Clerk. A copy of the notice has also been sent to such members as the public as have requested such information in accordance with the statute. Adequate notice having been given, the board secretary is directed to include this statement in the minutes of this meeting. Can we have a roll call?
Mr. Podluck?
Here.
Mrs. Stroman? Here. Mr. Anderson?
Here.
Mrs. Nolan? Mr. Schluter? Mrs. Dora? Here. Mr. Smith?
Here. Okay, great. Well, we do have a quorum. I'm going to put old business on hold. We have a couple of small things to address because we want to accommodate. And actually, we have two applications. One is Carol Lang Interior. But if you don't mind, we have it shouldn't be that complicated, but we have a matter involving the borough that we would like to take first, if we may. So we have Teresa Casagrande, who we'd like to hear from as part of the application, which is obviously the borough of Fairhaven, and the property at issue is 21 Fairhaven Road. That's block 47, lots 1 and 1.01. And the application is for the purpose of approval for house demolition of the structure that currently exists on that property.
Yes, sir.
So we'll hear from you.
I want to thank you for having me this evening and for hearing the application. I'm here on behalf of the Borough of Fairhaven. As you know, we recently purchased the property at 21 Fairhaven Road, which is a beautiful property adjacent to the borough's dock, overlooking the Navasink River. The borough has not finally determined a plan for the property, but it will be a park that I can assure you of. And the mayor and council are appointing a group of citizens to begin to meet and discuss the long-term plan for that park. We did acquire it with a combination of money from Monmouth County Open Space Grant, over $1 million. We've got $500,000 from Green Acres, and the borough contributed $364,000, I believe. The reason I'm here today, obviously, it's an historic district, and the borough is looking to demo the house. I provided for you a package that was prepared by Najarian Associates for the borough, and it was prepared on behalf of Green Acres grant that we submitted, because as part of the Green Acres rules, before you demo a piece of property, structure on a piece of property that you got grant funding for, you have to prove that it's not historic. The borough's records show that it was built in 1960, and the report there that you have that Jerry prepared with pictures and the narrative has been submitted to the New Jersey State Historic Preservation Office for their blessing and approval to demolish the structure. Obviously, we're looking for the commission's blessing and approval also, because it's in your historic district.
Yeah, well, thank you. And obviously, as a result of it being in the historic district, the commission has jurisdiction, and the report specifically for the record that you're referring to is the May 20th report of Najarian Associates, authored by Travis Osborne, Senior Environmental Scientist. So thanks very much for the submission. It was complete. It provided more information than I think we even really need, but it seems pretty apparent from what's been submitted as a house, I think, that was damaged in Sandy, has never really been repaired, has fallen in complete disrepair. It's probably hazardous amongst other things, and the property itself has been allowed to deteriorate to the point that even the breakwater in front of the bulkhead is collapsing. The soil is collapsing behind the bulkhead. mid-century 1960 house, clearly non-contributory from a historical standpoint. We've had these issues before where we have a house that just by virtue of where it's located comes before us, but really adds nothing to the district. And as such, we find that we cannot adhere to what we ordinarily do in terms of seeking to preserve something or seeking to have a design of the house or preservation of some elements of the house that would be consistent with other structures in the historic district. So I think that being said, it's in combination of that with the fact that it's deteriorated, uninhabited, is pretty much abandoned, in my mind, makes it sort of a no-brainer that the house should be approved for the purpose of demolition. Anybody else have any other comments or thoughts?
I would say that, as alluded to in the report, by age, virtue of the age, it's not that old and not and in terms of the quality of the structure, regardless of its age, it's not that contributing, regardless of when it was built, and it's in such poor condition that it's really not contributing at all to the district.
Yeah. And we had, because I know some of the descendants who grew up in that house, in the same way that the Lucky House, that was a tough one for us, because that's not in our jurisdiction either. When those applicants came forward, it's more of an emotional connection. The history is important to them for that reason, but it's, for all the reasons stated, it doesn't fit within the historical significance or contributory reasons that we can act on. But I just want to say that for the record, I'm aware of the impact it has on those that were there, but.
And I understand those sentiments, but I think it's very important to keep in mind that the most historical thing about that property is the Navigate River. And the fact that that parcel will be preserved forever and ever for generations to come, to be able to access that river in a beautiful site, I think is the most important thing, to keep in mind. And I think the removal of the house will allow the borough to move forward with future plans for, certainly something that will serve the residents for many years.
And I assume any proposed improvements would come back here if there are any.
Yes, I think that the governing body is going to be very pensive and consider, what the public is looking for. And certainly your input also. I can't say what that'll look like, but I'm inclined to think that it would lean towards something extremely passive. That's just how I think it will probably end up, playing itself out.
I would hope so, because that's why we kind of already went for it, because finding out that it was going to be passive, because they were talking about having a kiddie park with the water fountain.
Well, that was a joke. That was never, honestly, Pat, that was never sincerely considered. I won't lie to you.
Everybody was like.
Yeah, somebody made an offhand reference to that. You know how those things kind of take off. But
Yeah.
I have confidence in the governing body and their ability to listen to the public and to get good input on it. For now, we just want to secure the property from a safety perspective, get the house down, and level it out until they decide. And I also will say, Monmouth County Open Space Grants, they've changed their parameters. We got a significant larger grant than we originally had gotten for that property. They went from 250 to over the $1 million. And they also haven't increased the amount of their development grants to 500,000 in a match. And at some point, whatever the governing body and the public decide for that parcel, it would make a very good Monmouth County Open Space Grant submission in the future, because they look kindly on funding something to improve something that they helped purchase.
Teresa, do you know before the mid-60s, what was,
That was my next question.
what was going on there beforehand? What kind of home was there?
I don't know about a home. I do know that there was the borough did have a dock there.
Yeah. It probably was the location of the Chandler's Chandler's warehouse at Chandler's Dock. So
Right. Yeah.
from the old photos, it looks like that,
Yeah.
like whatever freight facility they had was kind of on the east side of that. It was probably on that property.
Right.
I wonder, obviously that was probably out of there by the 1930s or 40s, so 20 years prior to the construction of this house. But I wonder if during excavation or anything, if any remnants of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, you never know. I was talking to Councilman Cole the other day, and we were talking about the fact that we might want to reference that in some form, like
Yeah,
maybe,
and that's
maybe put a picture of it on the current dock, you know,
Yeah.
that when you're looking
Yeah.
in that direction or something in the future would be a nice thing.
Or if
to
any
do.
elements are found of the old dock, might be something for the, we have members of the Historic Association.
I
They may be interested,
Yeah, I
our
think-
liaison may be interested in preserving some of that and maybe
Right.
paying homage to it or something.
I think that's an excellent discussion, and in fact, at low tide, people do ask all the time about what those pilings are.
Right.
And it is where the original ferry was, so I think that's actually what you said earlier, is brilliant in the sense of. The historic part was the access to the river and what it was used
Yes.
for, and that's actually.
I think those
that-
probably
This
go.
could be a very exciting.
Sort of would help, sort of would help make Fairhaven, Fairhaven.
Original dock with the shed on it.
Yeah,
and
yeah, that's what I'm,
everything. Yeah,
that's what I'm thinking.
yeah,
Very cool.
that was cool.
Okay, any other thoughts or comments by the commission?
Not related to that, but to the historic district and to the town. I saw Rich Gardella down there and they were putting in the no parking signs, and I guess that whole possibility of having the historic district designated things.
Yeah, because I was gonna ask you, I was gonna keep you here for a few moments to discuss the parking sign thing, since you're so involved in it, but kind of let's just stick, if we could, just
Sure.
with this for now. I did have a question though, too, and that was, the Historic Preservation Office, sort of a quick rundown or analysis. Now, when you seek input from the Historic Preservation Office of New Jersey, is that done only in conjunction with a grant, or does the state do that automatically with a grant that affects something that is potentially historic?
I know it's required for Green Acres. And it's part of, Green Acres is a reimbursable grant. They didn't come to the closing with money. So before we close out that grant, they have different boxes we have to check, and one of them is if you're gonna demolish a structure, that you have to have it cleared through the state historic preservation office.
Is there any access that any kind of, like we would have, for example, to their ability to take a look at a structure and deem it historic or render
Honestly,
a rating anyway?
I don't know how they actually do it. I know it's an online submission process, we use the Jarian because we had used them for the environmental work also. And, they had come in prepared and followed the specs. I haven't heard back from them. I did advise, my representative at Green Acres that the borough had submitted it. And I don't know how long it takes them to turn it around and how long they meet, but I would imagine at some point we'll get an answer, and I'm sure we'd have access to their minutes or whatever that they produce as part of their review of the parcel.
Any thoughts or comments, questions from the public? No? Okay. I'll make a motion that we approve, based on the submissions and the representations, that we approve the application for demolition of the structure located at 21 Fairhaven Road, Block 47, lots 1 and 1.01. But obviously, the approval is limited to the demolition of that existing structure solely, no other activity on that property.
There's some trash on the property we have to clean up as part of the.
Understood.
Yeah.
I'll second the motion.
Can we get a vote on that?
Mr. Papa?
Yes.
Mrs. Drummond?
Yes,
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mrs. Sora?
Yes.
And Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. While I have you here, and I guess it kind of would fall into the old business category, is what had happened after the last meeting about these signs. There was some confusion as to what they would consist of. So in as much, I guess, as there was, some move prior to Memorial Day to place some signs with some no parking activity at the end of Fairhaven Road, there was a request on behalf of the mayor and some other council members to possibly have an intermediate or interim decision on whether we would weigh in on the existence of the signs. The main question was whether or not there would be painting on the street and the curbing, or whether or not we would prefer signs. When I say we, obviously, I mean the commission. We sent out an email, we got responses, and basically the overwhelming response unanimously was that signage would be preferable over any type of painting on the sidewalk or the street or the curbing. But that if there was any way to have some type of historic sign, that would obviously be preferential over any other type of signage. Obviously, that would maybe be a bit in conflict with other contemporary signs that exist in the historic district now. And there was a sort of a flurry of activity that went back and forth on that issue as to whether or not it's allowable, whether or not it infringes on public health and safety and what's required by the state as far as municipal signs and post ordinances, things of that nature. So maybe just tell us a little bit of the background of what happened and ultimately where we're at right now.
Ultimately, obviously, we took your input on signage versus painting of curbs. And, you know, we have several things going on there. We have the three-way stop that was put in. And there's parameters of how far back, you know, you have to be, you know, from the stop street and where the stop bars go and all that, and has to be worked out by engineering. And then the balance of the signs, which are really not up yet, revolve around 2-hour parking as you approach, you know, down by the dock area. We had to have them in special order, but the bottom line is the borough engineer in consulting with other engineers who have traffic expertise. Signs are within you know, a certain distance from a roadway. They have to meet state standards for signage, which include the type of sign, the reflectivity of a sign, and ultimately, most importantly, the breakaway of the post. Because the idea is that if it's almost a two-part post, and it's not my area of expertise, but Rich explained it to me. If you have to hit that with your car, instead of it becoming either something that could seriously damage you or could become a breakaway projectile, they're designed to just hold over flat. So, you know, the borough has to follow those regulations. If you were talking about, let's just say you had by me, we have Fairway Muse. It's a complete condo area where you're not public roadways, you know, you can have a little more leeway with your signage. Or if you're talking about signage that's going to be outside of the, you know, the footage involved on the roadway, you have a little more leeway and flexibility. But signs are actually posted as these are being posted, have to follow uniform traffic standards.
Understood.
And we did our due diligence. We looked up. Rich even consulted with a gentleman who lives in town, John McCormick. He works for Dynamic, and they do their major focus is traffic design and signage. And they helped. He was a big help to us when we did the River Road project with the bike lanes and everything. And he 100%, along with Rich's contact with the state, agreed that they would have to follow the standards for those type of signs.
Yeah, I kind of suspected that would have been the result, but you know, since it was open, we provided some possibilities and had a lot of input, but yeah, I understand.
And you know, a lot of my job is nothing's a problem that becomes a problem. And we do a lot to make sure nothing becomes a problem, because if there was ever an accident and we didn't follow that, you know, there's where your liability comes in. And you know, you have to do your due diligence and make sure that the borough is protected to make, you know, against some sort of a future filing of a suit.
Understood. Okay, unless there's any other questions or anything, thanks very much.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate everyone's
Get you
time.
out of here early.
Thank you.
I just did a long day. Thanks so
Take
much.
care.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Okay, Teresa.
Good night, guys.
Good. Okay, the second matter that we have on is, which was originally the first matter, we can have you come up with is Carol Lang Interiors, that's 813 River Road, block 50, lot 18. And that's new branded signage on an existing conforming freestanding sign. How are you?
Well, thanks.
Well, welcome to, are you Carol?
I'm Carol.
Okay, welcome, Carol.
So I am a tenant at 813 River Road, and as it's in the historic district, my understanding was I needed to come before you, just to have the signage reviewed prior to installation.
And what space in that building are you
Second
taking?
floor space.
Oh, so you're taking the open spin studio?
Yeah,
Okay, interesting.
so I'm looking to replace the existing Clementine 60-inch by 16-inch sign with identical sized signs with my company's name on it.
And what's the makeup of the sign? Is it going to be some type of
It's a
synthetic
vinyl.
material, vinyl? Is it going to have any depth whatsoever? Is it gonna be-
No doubt, just flat. That's what the existing is now. So I'm just, actually the Chief DePani at Powerhouse is doing it for me. He did the Clementine sign, so.
Okay. And I know, you know, I appreciate you submitting photos of the premises and submitting photos of the existing sign. And obviously, all three of those signs that are indicated in that submission were signs that were before us of identical construct, material, and the same manufacturer and installer, and I don't have any problems with the sign. Is there any thoughts or comments from the?
I mean, if anything, it's gonna be less obtrusive. I mean, not that the other one was offensive or anything, but it definitely. I think it's gonna be a little bit more subtle and tasteful and probably to generally, you know, kind of more vibe of the district.
Let me do a recording as an ad for my business.
I mean, it's consistent with the other signs that, I mean, obviously different, but I mean, obviously in construct and other signs that we've allowed in other parts of the historic district as well.
You got one time a year it matches the pumpkin color.
Right?
I know. Not
I
as
always thought they were
but-
pumpkins for a while when they first.
I have nothing-
They were real.
Is it gonna be this blue?
It'll be a
Our
navy
printout
blue.
was the,
It's a navy blue,
nice.
Yeah, so identical to what's been provided.
correct, yeah.
Any thoughts, comments, questions from the public? Yeah, were you in business someplace else?
I was working out of my house prior.
Okay, in Fairhaven, or you from?
Yeah,
Okay,
right.
and is it, what's the, tell us a little bit
I'm
about
an
the
interior
business?
designer, so
Okay.
I do primarily residential interiors. And I've been in business on my own for a little over 10 years, and 10 years before that, I worked for a large commercial architecture firm.
And are you gonna have the space up there, are you gonna have it as an office as well as a showroom and things of that
Yeah,
nature?
exactly.
Almost like catalogs, I imagine,
Yeah.
stuff like that, so. Excellent. Welcome. Good. Well, not welcome, because you've been well, stepping up
Yeah,
to a
exactly.
commercial
Yeah.
space, so very good. I'll make a motion that we approve the application for the signage as proposed.
On the zoning.
I'll second.
Yeah.
Mr. Pavlik?
Yes.
Mrs. Drummond?
Yes.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Yes.
And Mr. Smith.
Yes. Okay. Congrats. We'll write something up and we'll email it to you. You'll get it. Very good. Have a good evening.
See you, Karen.
All right, so in terms of old business, I think the main thing that we had going on was that was the signage thing that we had Teresa talk about. Like I said, it was just a lot going on. I know that you guys probably saw those emails that went back and forth, and everybody did respond that, you know, something that we could
Oh, it
possibly
could be
do.
really enticing to know, you know, to have it, but I understand that the whole liability and so.
Yeah, I mean, reflectivity of the sign,
Yeah.
I mean, you know, all that kind of stuff. I knew it was kind of, you know.
It's gonna be pretty innocuous.
And plus, it's, you know, we see it elsewhere. It's
I
like,
went
oh,
down,
we're
I
always
went
blind
down to
to-
the park, right by the dock, and suddenly they put up the signs, no parking, like,
Yeah.
I was parking, and I was like, Rick,
Yeah.
you're gonna ticket me?
Yeah, right.
There's also a porta potty right there, isn't there? So.
Yeah, we should have said, maybe gone for the old fashioned.
The porta, do the jobs.
Yeah, I don't know. Exactly. And I didn't see, there are a lot of, I mean, the 2 hour parking, I guess it's meant to prevent people from hanging out there or whatever, but.
Yeah.
Fine, that's a
Or,
separate issue.
or even going on the boat and leaving there for all afternoon kind of thing.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. Have them leave a little note on this.
Any other old business that we can think of? No? Okay, so we have the approval of the April 25th, 24 minutes. I looked at them, they look, I make a motion that we approve them.
Second.
Mr. Pavlik?
Yes.
Mrs. Drummond?
Yes.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Sure. Yes. Mrs. Besora?
Yeah.
Mr. Smith.
Yes. And we have our Historic Association Bicentennial Hall update with Katie, our liaison, and members of the public and representatives of the Historic Association.
At this point, I have no update, but I'll defer to the organization's president in case she wants to add any comments.
I'll refer to Tracy.
No,
There was a resolution on the agenda, I think it got taken off. So there's no update.
What was the
The
resolution?
resolution was, sorry, do you want? You know.
Tracy?
The resolution was for a proposal from the Goldstein Group to author the update to the maintenance and improvement plan that Mr. Pavlik did, what, 12 years ago now? While we have a proposal from Mr. Pavlik as well, we have not completed do this folks align, the proposal fees are quite different. And one is for 7,500, one is for about 1,500. Or 1,200, something like that. So we asked for a verification of scope, whether we have like for like, or are they differentiated in particular, because we want to make sure that we're going to have access to the right professional guidance for some key questions that would fall under maintenance, but be significantly important from a design standpoint, and all of that, of course, is gonna be deliberated here along with the stakeholder group, such as, for example, paint color.
Good. And would you ever bring that in front of the board for our recommendation? Because that's like night and day between those two firms in terms of their background and expertise. I mean,
I think the stakeholder group and the governing body might benefit from this board's knowledge of both of those firms and their capacity for preservation matters.
yeah, I think, yeah, they're very different structured firms with a very different kind of approach to things like that. I mean, obviously, one does primarily historic work.
Right.
Pablo. And so, yeah, and then not only that, he did some of the drawings back in the day for the restoration of it as well. So, but rather than an opinion, I think it, if it would be helpful from this board to put in our 2 cents of that, we'd be more than happy, because it definitely needs TLC and historic sensitivity and knowledge, as opposed to just something that's very heavy-handed and meets I mean, that's almost what happened with the ramp there before. It was just, it met the criteria at the time, but it was not well conceived or built or any of that. And of course, now it's falling apart, but it certainly detracted from and some of the proposals that were done here recently, equally, I mean, when they were gonna close the front doors and make them, really, and a number of things like that, there's a certain amount of functionality if it was a non-historic building, and some of that may be worth discussing, but for something that it's, been rescued by Pat and others, and has such a rich history, both socially as well as architecturally, that I think, there's one of those two that would be much more qualified to do that. But I think that would, if we can do something as a board to make that recommendation to the council, we'd really like to, put it.
I think it's an excellent suggestion. I think this body is in a position to make that assessment. Honestly, I think also your professional credentials as well. Also, one of them has appeared before the body. Mr. Pavlik hasn't he been here before the Historic Preservation Commission on other applications?
Well,
Yeah, not as an advocate for
But
the chapel to demolish a historic house.
But-
It's on the
Oh,
opposite
his
side.
credentials.
His credentials are impeccable.
Yes.
Well,
he's a-
and also, if we can recall that particular application that you're talking about, he was willing to make some very nuanced adjustments of it that, we really appreciate. I don't know, but they haven't started demolishing or reconstructing it.
That house is
Yeah.
completely done,
Oh, it's
redone. It's
Oh, okay.
fine.
I'll have to go by and see it. But anyway, that's awesome. But I know there was some stuff that we were looking at, some very things that it came from all of us looking at it, from different board members, that were these unique qualities about it, and he understood it, the importance of them, and put them in. Yeah, no, I gotta go in and see that.
And I think also just to kind of visit back to what was happening when all that activity was happening with the borough to reinvigorate Fifth Chapel and to use it like at the time that you were describing, a lot of the elements that were being advocated by that particular architectural group. I know that you were very critical of, and we've in general were kind of critical of, and that's just seemed to be their sort of mantra now. I'm not suggesting that detracts from their ability or their quality of the work. It may have been that they were tasked with coming up with a design that fit whatever the purpose was at the time.
Perhaps,
But-
but you're illustrating a potential disconnect between their understanding of the facility at a time when they were involved, you know, which is really done a 180.
Yeah, and it was
So-
consistent. There were a number of different decisions made and things that we looked at. that-
Right, so I don't know that they, at the Goldstein Group have caught up with
Yeah.
where we are, and in fairness, I think that could be part of the analysis that goes into.
Have you gotten a response back as to the comparison of the?
No, not yet, which is why, it was,
It was withdrawn.
there was, the homework wasn't complete,
Uh-huh.
we didn't have that.
Okay.
So it does give us time to, if you're interested in weighing in. The proposals themselves are 1 page, just because the work is straightforward. But it's a phone call to each of the firms, I imagine Teresa will do that, but certainly I would welcome this body's contributions in whatever form that comes, memo would make most sense. That's,
I mean, we could review the proposals, but, or we could even opine on the, because they've been here, both have been here in various capacities, so we, you know, I reflect on that and, or some of the other drawings that were prepared in the past, for it, which, Pablo had done, I don't know, what was it? Around 2010 or 2012.
2000, I think, yeah, 2007, yeah. that long, yeah.
Something.
So just to clarify, the Goldstein group was the ones who did the plans with closing off the front?
and the
Okay, I
day.
don't think I realized that. Okay, that was good. Thank you for.
Yeah, it was a bit of a surprise for us, you know, because it, you know, it in some levels, you know, worked for a very specific functionality of that. But it obviously took away the whole way the building was intended to be used. And also, I think, as we discussed here, that we'd hope it wouldn't be a one-trick pony, that there's a number of different uses that could occur there, but not only the boards being there, but other types of activities. And so, but you know, what taking advantage of some of the technological advances and things that are available now that are perhaps movable or able to not be so fixed and so intrusive, could be incorporated into it while, you know, keeping more of the thing and not coming in with a very, you know, heavy-handed. Yeah, I mean, they were changing the levels inside and,
Yes.
you know, all,
Had that been approved, just think about it, with the uses currently and what projected uses are and what the ideas are, I mean, that would have really, we would have been kind of kicking ourselves.
Yes.
That would have been a lot, so,
Yeah,
system works sometimes.
we have good people listening to each other.
And you know, when that ramp was first put in, we were neophytes about all of this ADA and all that stuff. And so we really had nothing really to say about it. And actually, the architects one lived in Fairhaven on,
they'd gone.
yeah, Kaplan and Gaunt did the ramp and everything. And after it was done, we were like, wow, that's heavy looking, isn't it? Very heavy looking. So I'm happy with everybody now. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, no, it seems like it's going in a good direction.
Yeah.
And I guess our 2 cents would be to try to keep as much of that integrity that's there and the stuff to you know, create. I think it's great, well, personally, I think it's great that it's gonna get further use. And you want it to be safe and functional, but at the same time, not stripping away or, you know, kind of, being so heavy-handed with it that it takes away its character.
And I think we mentioned this last week, but for last time, but the grant committee did put forward a grant or apply for a grant that would help with the future planning of what the uses we would want and how we might implement them and what would need to be done kind of structurally or, you know, So we're waiting to see, well, we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah.
Thank you to the,
Well, you know, it's interesting that you say that, and I'm not, you, Pat, you would know. And you would know as well, that when it was moved, it wasn't a cut in half.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, like, in a place that,
It-
I don't think it was an ideal place structurally to cut it, as far as I understand.
It
but
was
they can
cut
put on the back of
right
the
right
truck.
in the
at the
middle,
time.
straight across, right in the middle, and when it was put together again, they left out two important beams.
Yeah, it's just somebody's, that structural engineer should.
Yeah, definitely. Because when it rained, I mean, the walls were torquing in.
Yeah,
And when it rained, the water would run down the walls while you're having a meeting. It was tough, and the beautiful, tin ceilings got all rusted and
yeah,
curly and everything, and it ruined it, and it didn't have to happen.
no.
Anyway,
But anyway, any development of that, not only do you want to make it functional now, but if there's inherent structural issues that should be addressed sooner rather than later, I would hope that they would.
Do you suspect you'll have an answer by on the next meeting?
I don't know if it'll get turned around in time, but I think it would be helpful if this body has a position of some type that it would like to put forward. If in case all that does come together, I would like to make sure you're heard.
You mean, right, if we could weigh in on,
Mhm.
which,
Absolutely.
which vendor, if you will, is chosen.
I mean, there's times it's useful to pay a little bit more for
Yeah,
the qualifications and body work, the experience.
Yeah, and if there's any chance, I mean, would it make sense that we saw the proposal, so that we're just not talking
Yeah,
abstractly about it, or from, I mean, we could approach it either way, but
Yeah,
at least.
I mean, it's certainly, I think it's relevant for us to weigh in on it. We don't want to be an impediment, but obviously I think that, you know, especially with the timing. I don't know that we need to make a motion. I don't know that I need to make a motion.
we can request the proposals and circulate them to
Yeah.
the commission.
And then, by way of, you know, old business by next month, we'll follow up on this and then.
Is that gonna be soon enough?
I don't think so.
Well, not to make, but basically just keep it on the agenda as an item that keeps on recurring until something
Do
happens.
we need, I wonder if they're looking for a memo from us. in some
That's what I
way.
was.
Is
Me
that what
saying,
you're
I don't think
suggesting?
so. You want something before our next meeting.
Correct.
Yeah.
Like within the next week or 10 days, something like
I
that.
would say.
So in the same way that you pulled us for the signage and sent that to Teresa, would that be a similar?
Well, that kind of happened on a formal, basis.
So we should
Yeah,
add a
that whole
new
thing.
agenda item tonight then, perhaps to,
And or is it something that we can circulate here, because I mean, to have a unilateral kind of exposure like you did with the signs, you know, I thought that.
Yeah, so look, there's no application that's pending, so it's not like we can, you know, make a motion on something
No,
conjured up. So I think the way we'll handle it is to express to the association and as a representative of the borough, that we would like to have the opportunity to review that, look, observe it, analyze it to some degree, and then make recommendations as to the direction it goes and who is chosen. Obviously, knowing that it's just in our advisory capacity.
Yeah.
so just to, that's why I was asking, could we introduce that question right now tonight? And you eloquently summarized your stance, and if we could adopt his stance, or is that too
Or-
quick?
or at least
I
I
mean, the
think,
stance as to the,
Yeah,
we don't have it in front of us.
yeah, that's what I
So
think.
we're talking in
But we could sign the, or send something out to the borough, saying that we, you know, we do have an interest in it. We would like the ability to review the proposals and reply before action is taken on the borough's behalf in choosing a consultant to provide,
because under the agenda item of by hall, statement was made, it'd be good to have your expertise on this, so I feel like the request has been made. It's in the minutes, and now we can. act
I'll
on that,
send,
right?
I mean, I'll prepare a memorandum of action and send it
So
on.
I just don't want it to
drag on.
drag on.
Well, yeah, but I think we, as Art saying, if we put our foot in the door now, it's, you know, it's kind of in their response, you know, in their court to respond and get back to us. And hopefully,
And in terms of the wording of it, the actual document or the proposal called the document, what did it call the document?
It's a proposal for the update to the I'm gonna say maintenance and improvement plan, might say 10-year maintenance and improvement plan. You know, actually, let me just, give me a minute, and I'm gonna see if I can actually find that for you.
While she's doing that, I just have a concern about, you know, the either side of the building, there's two little bump outs. And one was used for the choir to change their clothes, and the other was used for the pastor, and they had on both sides 3 doors, like beautiful doors with glass in it, and they were, you know, like accordion type doors that could be put back. They were there until I saw, the last time I saw them was like maybe down the basement about 10 years ago. Still there? They're still there? Thank you, God.
I mean, what you described them, when
I
Rob,
didn't see them when I went
when
there.
Rob and I went down there, we saw against the wall behind a whole bunch of other stuff, doors that looked like what you're describing,
Okay.
but there, obviously it was, you couldn't move them, but we peeked down it and we
Oh.
saw glass in them. They may be down there,
That would be
but
perfect.
you know, we need.
Yeah,
What were you thinking of reinstalling?
reinstalling them because,
Was it between the main nave and the?
yeah, but on
transept?
both sides,
Okay.
yeah.
And
And,
have that,
and they
yes.
could be, you know, they would, you could close them if you didn't want them, but it's just part of the building.
Yeah, well, it's good to let them know
Yeah.
that those are
Yes.
existing and would like to have it incorporated in
Yeah.
either the original fashion or something that consists of it.
Oh, I'm so happy to know that they were there. I was like, always like, who took them? Anyway, good.
Do we have, still looking? Okay,
Yeah.
no worries, no rush.
I probably can find it, just.
It's in the agenda.
So when is the work gonna start on doing the new, ADA ramp and stuff? What is that? What's happening with that?
I don't know. But I don't know how that dovetails into this study, you know, if he was given the ability to go ahead and address that right now, the
So, no,
other.
that's separate, that was addressed separately.
Yeah.
Approved separately, and they're done looking the last.
Everything moves slowly.
Yeah. Usually it's government. There is still some more work to be drawn up. Before the ADA work goes out to bid. So we probably have at least another 3 weeks before it goes out to bid. Still hoping to be able to complete that work before, it's pretty simple, you know, don't you think? So maybe before the holidays, it's still be done.
Did they include, remember when we had that really bad rain and the pathway going to the bottom of the ramp, it was just flooded? Is
Yes.
that gonna be
Yes.
remediated?
There'll be 2 levels of work or 2 separate components of work that will address it. To a certain extent, some of the ADA improvements will address it because the ramp is contributing to the water in the basement.
Okay, yeah.
Flashing, or maybe no, but I don't know, but, we have some issues there with the, and then there's a punch list of repair and maintenance work that is also going to.
Okay,
Just from a grading standpoint and also within the basement, probably have to maybe even excavate a little bit carefully, but between those 2 buckets of work, that should get it.
As
Nice
long as I've got you, my other concern is that people are starting to talk again about putting big bushes around the building.
We
No.
know.
They didn't have built bushes like that in 1880 and 1890. It was bare. That's the way it was.
Yeah,
And people kept putting big evergreens next to it, and they had, the evergreens were so big that the branches were going in and breaking right into the window in the front on both sides. And squirrels were using that as the ramp to go in and nest in the inside. So please, just tell them, don't do that. Don't put
The squirrels have their own ADA.
Yeah, right.
At the last stakeholders meeting, I specifically, at the last stakeholders meeting, we were talking a little bit about the landscaping. And I did specifically bring up if we could maybe reference back to what would have been more historic.
Exactly.
So we're kind of on the same, we're on the same page, so.
I could have told them
I don't think
25
the
years
big
ago.
plans, but-
Joe.
No, they had
Oh, yeah.
4 evergreens at each corner and they were so big, they grew so fast that they had to be torn out. It was just like, okay.
We hear you, Pat.
I'm like, my babies.
Oh, it makes a difference. I mean, all this stuff coming off the trees.
I know. It was-
Let alone the roots going through.
Exactly, right, exactly. And then when from the street, you couldn't see the building. There were giant evergreens. I'll tell you some after. So, oh God. Anyway. Making me crazy.
I noticed that. Well, we go through this facilities committee, but, it has a conflict here, it's okay for sure.
That'd be interesting meeting. And so you.
I have a copy of that too. I just wanted to know, so whoever it goes to knows what I'm talking. Names or,
So the two exact phrases and stuff. It's the, you've got it. But the, and then,
what document is that you're looking at?
Just send it back, send your power.
That's Pat.
It's the first thing I grab.
That's the one from 2010. Right.
Yeah, you're not gonna those with the update of
Right.
I'm joking.
No, no.
Right.
I'm charging it.
Oh my God, this is so much during COVID. Like about 35%. That was tough.
Okay. All right, we'll get that taken care of. I will send that out. And,
So Tracy, I'm able to forward this to them. Of course, yeah.
if you could. Any other thoughts, comments of anything else?
I had just,
Centennial Hall related?
oh, not bicentennial hall.
No, all right, well, any other? You can feel free.
The building that's, where Men's Hair for Women is now, that was the original firehouse, as we know. And I actually found, there's a cool picture in the firehouse showing that the fire trucks, they parked all their trucks in what is now Nabu Grill. That's where they kept over, back then it was the Bent Hotel. The reason I bring that up is on June 1st, which is Saturday, June 1st, 1904 was the day that the fire company was incorporated.
Oh, that's cool.
The reason it was incorporated is that prior to that, for 15 years, the men who fought fires in Fairhaven were African Americans. And they had to bring their own pails. And they did the best job as they could, and then a couple of the wealthy folks with big estates, their houses burned down. And they said, we need our own fire company.
Yeah.
Fairhaven was sort of the stepchild of Borough Shrewsbury back then as far as services, and so we didn't even have fire hydrants. So they went into action, and so on June 1st, 1904, exactly 120 years ago, this Saturday, the fire company was formed, and that year they put in a motion to get the water company and said, we need 4 hydrants. Their first order of business was $2,000 for the first truck, which was, I think behind horses. And anyway, so I just want to bring that up. I know that's not in the historic district, but it's an interesting piece of history.
Yeah.
And, we're-
I think,
It was
Elise,
interesting.
you have a photo of that old firehouse, do you not?
Yeah.
Art gave me a photo of that.
Oh, really?
It's so
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
The second you see it, you see it.
So if you see all of us, this
Yeah.
Saturday, gathered on the front, Tyler Breckenridge, who did the fantastic drone footage of this, everything ties together.
And before
Fifth Chapel.
the firehouse was there, the new firehouse.
Oh,
People would, the men they'd have that big bell. Did
Yeah.
you see the big bell
Yeah.
tower, giant bell? And that would ring, and then all the guys with their wagons would go flying to wherever they were supposed to be.
yeah.
And, with their horse and
Yeah.
wagon. And the guy that got there first got won money, so they were going really fast.
They should reinstate that.
Yeah, so anyway, so if you see it at not at 10 in the morning on Saturday, we're all gonna be in the front of the firehouse taking this picture.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
The original one.
Yeah, oh, yeah, that's what we should do. No, we're gonna be in front of our firehouse. We went the,
Yeah.
Any other thoughts, comments from public? No, oh, yes.
Yes,
Oh.
I'm kind of confused that you had some kind of a discussion about the signs on Fairhaven Road, but you did it email wise?
Yeah, so what happened is there was it was, an action taken on behalf of the borough, or a thought that there was going to be additional signage at the end of Fairhaven Road. It didn't make it on as an agenda item, so we didn't address it formally. But the borough had to take action, it wants to take action with regard to the signage prior to Memorial Day. So they consulted us, they sent emails to us, and we sent emails amongst the commission as to our position on the existence of signage versus painting on the sidewalk, street, and curb. And that came back as preferring signage as opposed to the painting. And then also, there was a suggestion by, I think, every one of the members, if there's any way to have made the signs historic in nature or something, not just a contemporary, traffic sign. And so we weighed in on that, but obviously it didn't make all that much difference because of what Teresa described here, that they're pretty much, the borough has its hands tied in terms of various elements for public safety and adherence to traffic safety laws and other borough requirements and other state requirements. So the signs went in the only difference that I suspect our role was the signage versus the painting of the roadway.
My concern is, because you're a commission and, the public gets notified when your meetings are, I'm a little concerned about doing this like behind the scenes and not under the open public meeting act.
Well, we did discuss it, and it was discussed were you here at the last meeting?
No,
Yeah, so it was discussed, and it was, I believe, it was part of old business. We discussed the signage issue, so it is in the record.
no,
it should be
I
known in the
thought
record.
that you discussed it via email.
Well, no, so basically, we were going to table it for a month. But because the borough needed to take action before Memorial Day, they asked whether or not we could take some action on it beforehand. And that was done via email, done via the consensus of the commission.
So you didn't make the decision at the meeting? You didn't?
We did not make a decision at the meeting now.
Okay, so that's a problem under the open public meeting act.
Well, I'll just,
And that would, wait a
well, I
minute,
mean, I don't think everybody, you guys weren't all, I'm on the email. I don't, they weren't all on there.
well,
I think that's your
was
concern.
the quorum?
No. Mr.
But
Chair.
still, the decision was made. So that I'm kind of concerned because you're now discussing two different plans for Bicentennial Hall, and you're talking about doing it behind the scenes again.
Well, that's not something that really is being done by the commission per se. It's something that is a sort of a private public partnership between the Historic Association and the borough. And through the fundraising efforts and efforts made by the group with the borough, they're seeking to get a plan to move forward with activity, with the restoration and renovation and maintenance of the building.
No, I understand that. But because it's not on your agenda tonight, and you don't have time to do anything before this comes before the council again. So it sounds to me like it's going to be again done behind the scenes, so.
No, not at all. And that's precisely, I think, one of the reasons why there wasn't a formal motion made or any quote unquote action taking. It was more of sort of an inquiry, if you will, in a sense that we're being advised of this. We're being advised of the status of what's happening between the public-private partnership of the borough and the association. We feel as though it's something that perhaps we would like to weigh in on. So we're seeking to get that information, the proposals and the information. And it will
And
come
then
up,
how
and let me just finish. It'll come up as an agenda item, or will be discussed, or will be placed as actual business, probably in the Bicentennial Hall section next month.
Okay.
Or to your point, and your point's well taken, I actually will, let me just finish. I'll instruct Sheila perhaps to put in there that the issue with regard to the proposals for the maintenance and improvement plan be part of a subheading of the Bicentennial Hall discussion for next month.
And secondly, will you be going on Zoom at all? The planning board just voted to go on Zoom. They haven't finalized exactly what their criteria is. But like, then I couldn't miss a meeting because I was ill.
Yeah, there hasn't really been a discussion as to it. I'm not personally in favor of it. But again, it's not even been something that we've thought about or addressed, to be honest with you. I don't know. What are people's thoughts on that?
What's the, out of all the borough committees that meet, how many of them do it publicly?
None. I shouldn't say that. Planning and zoning currently do not have a Zoom feature. Planning had a discussion at their last meeting and took a vote on whether or not to use Zoom moving forward. They voted, a majority voted yes. That they would then at our next meeting, they will discuss some of the details and the parameters of how that will work. There was a lot of discussion about some of the issues that surround it.
Yeah, the reason I asked that question, there's the library, I mean, there are a lot of books
Yeah,
in
like
Fairhaven that
rec,
meet.
the rec department meets virtually, the council meetings are obviously conducted.
Yeah.
Environmental.
Yeah, so I mean, it
I
could be
mean-
something that we could put on as an administrative item for our next meeting and then have a discussion and.
Was there anybody that has a
That's
desire
what
to do that?
planning did,
I mean, I have no
Yeah.
desire to do it. I think.
Versus coming in person?
Yeah, I think that, it's so tactile. and
Oh, you
visual.
mean for us to do it via Zoom?
No,
no, you,
I'm saying so the public can view.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
I-
Understood you. I mean, so.
it was a
there-
long discussion about a lot of the nuance, whether or not it would be public or whether or not it'd be members and what any parameters we would have to design around that, how we would deal with applications and viewing materials
so to that point,
and sharing that with the public. And then, for example, if like last minute, you get a submission this evening from an applicant, then you can't show that on the Zoom. And so there were some things like that.
Well, in essence, this is a public meeting because it has to be announced ahead of time. And if people want to come, they can come. I don't,
I think Susan's bringing up just the nature of the times that even though people can go to any meeting, like council meetings, for the Board of Ed meeting, and it's been tremendous for those bodies that obviously have as much as I think our job is very important, the Board of Education, the council obviously have wide-reaching audiences. And it's been very favorable to those bodies to go to Zoom, especially during COVID. So the question is how important, are you hearing people, Susan, say they want to participate in this remotely?
Well, there's already two other commissions who do
Yeah.
have Zoom meetings, the Environmental Commission as well as the Shade Tree Commission, and they're on Zoom for the public.
And when you say that, just so I know, they don't conduct their meetings via Zoom, but they have a Zoom component where the members of the public can participate.
They conduct, yes, we can raise our hands and be recognized, but they also conduct their meetings.
Okay,
And
so,
they have members who Zoom in and vote.
yeah, I mean,
there's two factors here.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought-
There's how do we participate as a group of people that meet once a month, and what can the public view? I am not averse to the public viewing our work and hearing us talk. In fact, it's very good, actually, for more people to become interested in historic issues. I personally, for the reason that Sheila stated, think we should be meeting in person.
Yeah, I completely agree. I
Like
think the,
another
and the
pandemic.
element of members of the public that would be
Yeah.
viewing it would not have access to documents and things of that nature.
And they never do though.
Well, correct, although clearly if somebody, a member of the public wanted to see something before they made a decision as to whether to voice a comment, there would be no problem with that clearly. However, they have the right to appear in person. And that's not something that's being removed from their opportunity. So if they choose to merely observe by virtue of Zoom, no, they may not have that ability to do that, but that's their choice. So that would be my thought on it. But in terms of moving completely to Zoom, I have no interest in that.
No.
I think we would lose something in terms of, again, the interaction with the applicants. Some more than others, taking of exhibits, the looking of plans, blueprints, elevations,
And that's
specifications.
not what I was asking. I was just asking to,
Well, you kind of just threw out whether or not we considered it, or, you mentioned other components of the borough doing that, so we hadn't really considered it. It's not even
What's-
something that we talked about.
Sheila, what's the technical, let's say a commission or a group wanted to use Zoom, does the borough already automatically have a Zoom link system set up?
Yeah, we
It's
do,
as
like
quick as
this,
just,
it is, we're just, as far as planning is concerned, we're kind of looking into what the possibilities are, and then regrouping at the next meeting. So the decision was made that yes, enough members wanted to have some element of Zoom. The question will be, how do we handle all the details? Who zooms in, could it be used in a situation where a member is not available, but wants to call in from the outside, if they can't make a meeting, but then in fact, if they would need it for a vote, would their vote count? Because what if they can't have,
could an option be, we choose,
there was a lot of nuance, a lot of conversation.
could a variable, are we allowed to say, sure, open it up, like I said earlier, so the public can listen and view, but the members, our quorum is only by who is physically present? Can we limit it to that? Or once it's open to Zoom, does that mean?
I think probably, because we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves, because again, this is thrown out, we're having this like sort of a general discussion about it. It's not something that we had ever discussed before, it ever even contemplated. I didn't even know it was really an issue, an item. And I'm hearing that we're a little bit behind the technology. We don't even know what the capabilities are going to
Really,
be.
it's on my
Yeah,
to-do list.
yeah,
to
sure. And
figure
once
out
those
for the next
capabilities are
planning
introduced-
meeting, which I haven't really dug into,
yeah,
but that's.
understood. It's all
Yeah,
pretty new,
yeah.
but once those capabilities are introduced and we see what the options are, then that's when we're going
Right.
to determine what level or what element. I agree. I think having the public participate is a great idea.
Yeah.
Maybe even some component of somebody that if we have the ability to bring somebody in via Zoom, if we have an applicant who maybe has experts that we can't have, that we don't have a quorum,
Mhm.
I would like to accommodate the public that way as well.
Mhm.
Few and far between, but it does happen. So let's see how your search goes, and then we can make a decision at that
Well,
point.
the
Makes
fact
sense.
that when people come in, individual people come in for their particular house, not too many people are, care about, I can't see it, being a big deal about having Zoom.
It can't hurt us, is my point. It can only
No,
benefit
it can't
for
hurt,
the
but I'm
residents
like,
to learn about.
just saying, it's not gonna be like the zoning board or the planning
Right.
board, it'd be different.
Sheila, what do you do with the recordings?
They're on YouTube.
So anybody can go on YouTube? And they're on YouTube in perpetuity, so anybody can go there and find them?
They, I believe, they can be held for a year, and then they can be let go of, whereas the minutes, the documents, those are forever.
Interesting.
But the audio is, you can get rid of it.
Did we address your questions or thoughts?
I brought it up, so.
Okay, all right, I just wanted to know because,
Was your concern more that you would want them, remote people to be a participant, or just as a matter of record of every, of the meetings, of what people say and do?
Well, I guess I'm used to, attending the environmental commission, the shade tree commission via Zoom, and I can raise my hand if I have a comment or a question or something like that.
Well, I mean, it's brought up, it's something that, we know now is an option, or at least I didn't know it, I don't know whether anybody else knew it was an option or potentially an option, depending on what we find out technologically, and, we'll put it on as an old business item.
So you don't listen to council meetings?
I'm sorry,
You don't listen to council meetings?
sometimes, but not always.
Oh, he goes all the time.
Yeah, that's.
That's too much.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different levels of ways of approaching. this.
Yeah.
So, but it's great discussion to get it going and so, I mean, the participants have to be here and they do that remotely,
Well, I think it also depends on the complexity of, if you have that, you have a demolition or reconstruction or what we did on River Road with, you're not doing that via Zoom.
Well, you know what I'm even thinking about the one house we were talking about, the different nuanced and what a dynamic conversation we had that day. And it was different ideas from different, I remembered a lot of the different board members had saw in the existing house different qualities of it that they wanted to keep. And, it just seemed
You
like.
lose something in Zoom.
You could, yeah, I don't know, it's just something to talk about,
I'm saying you guys have to do this.
And I understand, we're just, I
Yeah,
understand.
no, agreed.
I know.
And so we're trying to get it to be the best it could be, but I think having the public be a part of this and inviting them more into it is great. Because whatever, it's part of our town, and and the history is part of it too, and we hope that they would take an interest and, be aware of what's going on.
Well, as you can tell, there's not a lot of people here.
No, but I mean, maybe it'd be more if it was easier and they didn't have to leave their kids or whatnot, and.
Take the field of dreams approach. If we build it, they will come.
All right, and if there's nothing else, motion to close.
Second.
Hey, Katie,
Thanks, everyone.
I tried to find the goal student.
call my name.
Outlook is. Was supposed to be on my phone.
Thank you.
Hi.
All right. We're having slice of pizza. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.
It's really recommendation by. Get on.